My name is Nate.
My name is Richard. How was the race?
As a Ferrari fan, terrible. But as a first race of the season, it was a very good race. Or I thought it was a very good race.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, so the Bahrain Grand Prix just happened a week ago. It has now since been a week since the Bahrain Grand Prix, but we both went home to see with our families and for his birthday. But it was pretty fun.
It was a good race.
I thought it was a decent race. Right out the bat, Max Verstappen won. No challenges.
Red Bull 1-2 finish. That was, I mean, good for them, but like for us, it's
Well,
like, yeah.
we'll start with qualifying. And
Okay.
I guess the lead up to the race. So starting with practice sessions, it was pretty clear that Aston Martin was pretty fast. Throughout the sessions, Alonso was either at the top or near the top with the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. And what was pretty noticeably different was that the Mercedes were pretty off pace, and no one kind of expected that. Everyone knew
They weren't going to be performing as well, but like,
I had mentioned before that they weren't going to be as good, but to continue on through the weekend, Lance Stroll had a biking accident in between testing and the race, and he broke his wrist and his toe.
he broke his toe?
Yeah, which that shit hurts.
I knew about the wrist, but I didn't know about the toe.
So he had emergency surgery. He's fine now, but it was really touch and go if he was gonna be at the race. Within, I think a day or two before,
Yeah, they announced that he was going to race.
he was
That's
cleared,
crazy.
and then throughout the practice sessions, it was pretty clear that he was struggling to. He was clearly fast in the car, but he was struggling to cope with how the car was handling his body. The one clear thing that anytime he made a hairpin turn, he couldn't turn, or a right hand turn, because his right wrist, I believe, is the one that's broken, and he got surgery on that one. And when it came to turning the car to the right, he had to let go with his right hand and push it, let go of the steering wheel. So he let goes with this one, and instead of holding it right here, because F1 cars don't have the top and the bottom, he grabs it here and pushes over from the bottom. So I know it's kind of weird with this shape, but he pushes from the bottom, and a lot of people were very concerned about that. But he definitely had the pace, and I think that's really impressive to see. I know.
Yeah, because he went through all of testing, like not driving the car, right? He only got the...
Yeah, he didn't drive the car at all. Which, I mean, they still have the simulators, which help a lot, but it's not the same.
He's driving the actual thing.
And what was very concerning, the second practice, he had to get help getting out of his car. So people thought he wasn't in shape to race, but
He did good.
he kept going. He did good during the race. And then we get to qualifying, which that was really fun to watch. Throughout qualifying, it was pretty clear. Red Bulls were at the top. Ferrari at the beginning looked like they were going to do pretty good.
And then it just...
And then once we got into Q2, then into Q3, it was pretty clear. The Red Bulls were straight up dominating. But Alonso, the Mercedes, and Ferrari were all pretty close. So the qualifying results ended up as Verstappen first, Perez second, Leclerc third, Sainz fourth, Alonso fifth, the two Mercedes behind him with Russell and Hamilton, Lance Stroll eighth, which was really impressive, Ocon ninth, Hulkenberg 10th, Norris 11th, Bottas 12th, Guan Yu Zhou 13th, Sonoda 14th, Albon 15th, Sargent 16th, which was his debut, which he did pretty good, Magnussen 17th, and Piastri 18th, Nick DeVries 19th, and Pierre Gasly 20th. So...
What? Gasly had a... What happened to Gasly?
I don't remember. Oh, I think he had his time deleted. But from what I was watching, he wouldn't have made it in anyway.
Okay.
So he was just slow. Don't know why. It could have been he got impeded on his lap
Yeah.
or just made a mistake. But I mean, we'll get into the race.
I thought qualifying was fun though. It was nice seeing everyone on track again.
Yeah, because I mean, everyone. It used to be like you start at like a bunch of street tracks, or you would start at like random races that we didn't go to very often. So the true pace of like the cars and what they would be wouldn't be like revealed until you get to somewhere like Spain, which is like a permanent track,
Mm.
and everyone has already tested there or like is familiar with the circuit, so people can run at how fast they can normally run, and no one's like if they're a rookie or something, like everyone has raced there before, so they know how that track works.
And when is that race? 1, 2,
Well,
3.
that's Spain, but now we start at Bahrain, which F2 goes to Bahrain, F3 everyone goes to Bahrain, so there's no excuse that they should be unfamiliar with the track.
Yeah.
So the first race really shows where everyone is, and Red Bull is gone.
It's at the top. I just remember seeing the times during the race, and I was like, "Damn, Carlos is really that far behind the Red Bulls." And I was like, "Oh."
I just noticed Leclerc did a 130 flat, 130.000
During
qualifying. That's pretty good.
Well, I mean, it's still the topic of qualifying, because like Ferraris, they're good for like qualifying. I feel like yeah, they're good for getting that fastest lap and then pole position, whatever. But then come race time,
Ferrari. Didn't he get a lot of poles last year?
that's why like he got like he was just like on the same thing as Schumacher or something like that, like. And then just the races didn't go.
Yeah, and then getting into the race, right before the race, Ferrari switched out Leclerc's control electronics. So that's your, if you're, on your regular road car, someone talks about, oh, your computer controls your car. Well, this is the same thing. It's the brain of the car. It sets everything, how it works, how, like the display on their dash, how everything works electronically in your car. That's what controls it. So they replaced it and the battery, I believe, because they thought they saw something a little bit off. So they replaced it just in case before the race. And then the race starts.
The race started well. It started okay. And then I forgot what lap it was on though, but it was like more than halfway. I think it was more than halfway through.
Do you want to start from like the beginning of the race and cover everything, or do you want to?
That's fine. So we're done with qualifying?
Yeah, we're done with qualifying.
I will say, who was it? It was Norris and Logan that they got the same times, right?
Yeah, they got the same time.
Out Logan.
If you get the same time, what ends up happening, whoever set that time first gets pole or gets put ahead. There's a famous incident in '97 at the last race where the top 3 guys all got the same time, where people thought it may have been a fault of the time minute scoring, but who knows? It was really exciting. But yeah, so
that's cool.
I mean, it happens once in a while, but not usually at pole. Anyway, so into the race.
Lights out, away we go. So Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, 1-2. Then you had Charles and Carlos right after them. I'm not gonna go into the whole list. All I remember was the race starts. Max, he gets away. I remember Perez didn't get like the greatest start.
Yeah, he got squeezed by. He didn't get a great start, so him and Leclerc were side by side.
Carlos was trying to get in. He didn't. Which. But I know Charles got passed, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, so they were side by side. Leclerc squeezed them. Perez didn't have much room, so he backed out. Then he gets stuck behind the Ferraris for some time. Alonso got jumped by both some Mercedes right at the start.
Gets hit by Stroll.
Yeah, and then his teammate out of nowhere hits him. Luckily, they don't have
That's
much
crazy.
damage.
Yeah, like they didn't have any
Yeah.
noticeable damage.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, that's what I want to know. I mean, they haven't said anything, but when you like hit like carbon fiber now, it may look fine, but there's like small cracks, and that can make a big difference. I don't know if you one of the races last year, or maybe the year before that, Verstappen had like a crack on his floor, and he was losing like a tenth a lap, and it wasn't even like you couldn't see it, but
You,
yeah,
the times were like telling you.
So I wonder if Stroll was affected by that. I mean, he still did really good anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where they end up.
I just remember the radio who's like, "I've been hit," and they're just like. I wonder if they told
Also,
them.
Hulkenberg has an incident with Gasly, I think, and he actually has front wing damage, but they don't pit him and they leave him out there for a while.
Hulkenberg and Gasly?
Yeah, because they started pretty low. If I'm not mistaken, Hulkenberg had a terrible start, so he fell like straight back. So everyone overtook him. I think Bottas had a bad start as well. There's a lot of people that had bad starts.
Bottas? He was started what, 12th?
Yeah.
I remember him being in top 10 though, like later on. Or maybe it was just the start.
Who? Hulkenberg?
Bottas during the race.
Yeah, during
Not
the
that
race, he started like 8th, I think.
He started 12th.
Oh, he started 12th, so maybe he got a good start. I could be wrong.
It's been a week already.
It's been a week. Everyone kind of gets away clear. Pierre Gasly jumps a lot of people on the start, so he had a really good start.
Gasly.
Lando Norris also, I think, was another one that dropped right away.
I don't remember about Norris.
I mean, after the first like 2 laps, it gets pretty like relaxed. No one's really passing anyone. Everything at the front stays the same. Perez is trying to get over Leclerc, and they're losing time to Verstappen. And I think by the time they get to the first pit stops, which happens around lap 13, lap 11, I think, is the first person to do it. But by that point, he's already 5 seconds back. And it's not like once he gets to 5 seconds, it kind of levels out. They're not really gaining or losing time, but Perez is having a hard time getting past Leclerc. They get to the pit stops, and almost everyone started on softs, and then
They went to hards.
they went to hards, except for the Red Bulls. Red Bulls went soft.
Yeah.
So after the first pit stops, Perez got by Leclerc, but by this time he's 8 seconds back or something like that. So he's already lost a lot of time. There's not much he can do about that at that point, but this is already around lap 20 something. Lap 13, we have our first retirement, and it's Oscar Piastri, I think he was already somewhere really low anyway.
Yeah, because he started 18th. I don't think he really got a great start too, so he was probably stayed or went lower.
He didn't do much, and then, well, he retired with electrical issues, which is...
Because I remember they were like talking during the race, like, oh, like he needs to replace his steering wheel or something.
He had a pit first, right? They replaced his steering wheel, and then
It had to like load up and everything or something.
And I think it didn't work. Well, clearly, it didn't work.
Because he was there for a cool minute, and I'm assuming they were just like, all right, yeah, it's
not working.
Which kind of sucks, first race and did not finish.
I think, to me, that's a reflection. And this is around the time Lando Norris also has an issue. His hydraulic system has an issue where the air pressure is going down, I think. So it has to be topped off every so often. So he makes like 4 or 5 pit stops throughout the race. But he also has this issue. And I think this overall reflects from McLaren that their car is really bad. And the team that they have, like, they shouldn't be making these many issues. Now, stuff can go wrong. But this may be because they have a Mercedes engine, which has
Yeah.
always been known to be pretty reliable. So there's no reason why the engine should have any problems. But it seems like
Their car design or like
their car design, the way that they've engineered the car to integrate together, isn't that great. I mean, this could just be a one-off, but this shouldn't be an issue right off the bat.
Because Norris started 11th, then he went all the way down to what is this? Oh, qualifying. I literally just had 17th. That sucks.
Yeah. Well, so he has that issue throughout the race, and that pretty much puts him out of any chance of getting points. I'm surprised they didn't retire him sooner, which they should have, but
It's for the fantasy league.
I'm sure if you had McLaren in general, both drivers, and you put them on your fantasy, I'm sure you got negative points.
Leclerc.
And at the first pit stops, that's when we find out that Ocon is getting investigated for being out of his grid slot, which they go to the replays and he misses it by like a foot, which isn't much, but if you don't line up on your marker, that's like any advantage, because any advantage in Formula One, you're gonna get penalized for it. I know everyone. We won't talk about that. So moving on from there, this will start up a trend. He gets a lot more penalties for stupid reasons, but
I think it was only him really too getting penalties. Like it was just all I would see was Ocon penalty, and I was like, damn.
Hulkenberg, he would end up getting a warning for track limits. I don't think he ended up getting a penalty for it, but yeah. So by midway through the race, it's kind of single file. I mean, there's some overtaking in the lower field, but it's pretty tame.
Like Gasly just moving up the field pretty much.
Yeah, Gasly's making moves. Everyone else is kind of staying put. But where it ends up after the pit stops, you see Logan Sargent, who started 16th. He's now up a couple places, up to, I think, this point, 13th or 12th. And he ends up staying there. Most people by this point in the race stay where they are. The other notable person that kind of has their race fucked is Hulkenberg. Just because he had the damage on lap 1, so he was pitting right away. Or he didn't actually, they didn't pit him, so he was slow right away. They didn't tell him until he had to come in. Took forever on his pit stop because he has to replace his wing. Lost a lot of places. And they couldn't do much because I believe they went for some weird strategy.
Low-key, I wasn't paying attention to Haas during the race because, like, they just they fell near the bottom, so I was like, yeah.
But the main attraction for this race was Alonso. Like I mentioned at the beginning, he got behind both Mercedes, and this man.
But he passed both Mercedes.
He passed both Mercedes. He
passed Carlos too.
Yeah, he went on a redemption run, got around Russell pretty easily. Did they have a battle?
They were like at it for a little bit, but I think he got through pretty
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
him and Hamilton, they kind of had a.
Yeah, then they get to Hamilton and Alonso. They were battling for a couple laps, and that was pretty fun to watch. And then Alonso with the beautiful move, coming in from the outside, then cutting to the inside at the last second, gets Hamilton on the inside, and it works like a dream. He gets through. Next up on his list was Sainz. I think before he gets around Sainz, I believe he's... No, this is after that. So, before he's coming up towards Sainz, but before he can get around him, Leclerc has an engine failure, quote unquote. It was his control electronics that they replaced as a precaution.
I remember his radio. He was like, no. I was like, no.
No, and on his debut painful. With Ferrari, he was leading. Mm-hmm. Like, he was winning.
Yeah.
And then, like, 3 laps to go, his engine starts giving out on him. And then, like, on the last lap, he gets past Hamilton. And he finishes, like, second or third. Everyone felt bad for him.
Like when he first started with Ferrari?
Like his first race with Ferrari, this has always been an issue. Which is, come on, guys. But until that point, yeah. So going back to Perez, he gets around Leclerc pretty quickly after the pit stops because he's on a much faster tire.
Yeah.
But at this point, they're like everyone besides the Red Bull, they're like 10, 15 seconds behind the next Red Bull.
Yeah.
So they're 20-something seconds behind Verstappen. So no one has a chance of touching them. But towards the end of the race, you have Mr. Alonso going after Mr. Sainz Jr. And they battle like Hamilton. They're there for a couple of laps, and he's actually holding himself back, or they're holding each other back. So Hamilton gets up pretty close, but he doesn't have enough speed to do anything. Eventually, Alonso tries the same move as Hamilton, or he did on Hamilton. Doesn't work. Gets behind him. I think he just gets him on the straight, no?
Yeah.
It was pretty... Like the final overtake wasn't as crazy, but the battling, they were pretty close. That was the main attraction for this race, but other than that...
He got me a lot of points, Alonso.
I mean, towards the end, a lot of the midfield... they were pretty close with each other.
Yeah, because I think... Oh, actually, never mind. Because I remember Yuki, Zhou, and...
Yuki, Albon, Zhou...
And Nick.
And Gasly.
Kind of...
They were all in that same spot together. Around the same time, Stroll gets around Russell. So if that proves that the Mercedes isn't slow.
Yeah.
Eventually, you get your top 10 finishers. After that, it was pretty calm towards the end. You got Verstappen first, Perez second, Alonso third. So he gets a podium. His first race with Aston Martin.
How many podiums does he have? It was like...
a lot, probably. Fourth was Sainz. Fifth was Lewis Hamilton. Sixth was Lance Stroll. Seventh was George Russell. Eighth was Valtteri Bottas. Ninth was Gasly. 10th was Albon. The fastest lap went to Zhou, who finished 16th, but he doesn't get a point. And they put him on purpose to get that point to take away from Gasly, who had it before him. After that, Yuki Tsunoda finished 11th. 12th was Logan Sargent. 13th was Magnussen. 14th was Nick DeVries. 15th was Hulkenberg. 16th was Zhou. 17th was Norris. And Ocon ended up retiring. So did Leclerc and Piastri. Ocon, after his first penalty, he came back in to serve his penalty. And
they served it wrong or something, right?
Yeah, so usually when you come in, you can't touch the car for 5 seconds. Once that's done, they can do whatever you want to the car. But I believe one of the mechanics started working on the car right away and then stopped, which you're not allowed to do that. And then, so that got messed up. So when that happened, he came in, I think, one more time to serve his penalty again. But this time he sped through the pit lane. So then he had an even bigger penalty for that. And then they just retired him after a while because it didn't make sense to keep him running. He was already behind and save the engine for the next time.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It was funny because he and Gasly pretty much swapped places. Or will
Yeah. I mean, that's good for me. I want Gasly to do better, but... So that was the race. What would you rate that out of 10?
I thought it was solid 7 out of 10, you know?
Okay, 5 is average.
5? Oh. A 7 out of 10. I think most races for me are pretty good. I don't
to me this. So a lot of people are calling this race really boring.
Yeah.
But I think that's a result of it being the past 2 seasons being so good that I think this race is the most average race you'll ever see in Formula One. Even back before, when F1, a lot of the teams were competitive, you'd usually see this. I'll go back to 2003 is a good example, or 2001, 2000. So Ferrari, McLaren, maybe Williams once in a while, or even back in the 90s, you'll see one team dominate or one driver dominate, and like no one has a chance of touching them, but everything behind there is up for grabs.
No.
You might see like some overtaking, some battles, but for the most part, it's people trying to get past on strategy and keeping the spot where they are, which this is what happened for most people.
Because like more than halfway through the race, once like everything settled down, that was pretty much
It was
the
going to finish.
positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the end of the race.
So like even like there was some good overtaking, and I feel like just because the excitement was there because it's the first race, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. But on like most, on if this wasn't the first race, I'd say 5 out of 10. It's just like right in the middle. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's good. It's an average
Solid.
race. Yeah.
I think it was just like the Alonso stuff. Man, there should be like a -3 for the Leclerc stuff.
Well,
But Alonso, I like Gasly as a driver, so like I liked seeing him move up. I like seeing him do good.
I would say this is an underdog story, but I mean the Red Bulls
Yeah,
really took it over. Perez finished 12 seconds behind him. I think it would have been kind of close if they left him. If he got around Leclerc right at the start,
yeah.
it would have been a lot closer. There's a lot of speculation about this, but they ended up turning down their engines like halfway through the race, and people said that like they probably were, because they did that, from half a second to a second a lap slower because of that, to save their engines.
So that they weren't running at full speed to.
So if they were, imagine how much further they would have got ahead.
They really got to handicap themselves or everyone else.
I mean, we'll see where it ends up, but we'll get to predictions later. But overall, I think it was a pretty good race.
I like the race. It was a good time to wake up to, 8 a.m. What was that, 8, right? 7.
7.
So, I could do 7. Like
Next one's 5. We'll worry about it. We'll worry about it when we get there.